But the news was just announced that WNBA TV ratings are down more than 50% since Caitlin Clark's injury. And it was also reported that the Indiana Fever television viewership is also down over.
The WNBA recently received a harsh reality check. As Caitlin Clark recovers from her injury on the bench, the league's ratings have completely collapsed. We're talking about a catastrophic 55% decline in viewing. The stats don't lie, and they present a picture that has the league in a panic.
50%. Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire
This is the result of biting the hand that feeds you. Let's examine these startling figures first. Do you believe the WNBA is finally seeing how much they need Caitlin Clark, or will they continue to act as like this is all a coincidence? Please share your opinions in the comments section below.
Getting Caitlin Clark for the New York Liberty game. Stephanie White made made a statement on that today.
Well, who is suddenly worried about ratings? The WNBA, the same league that for the majority of the previous season either ignored or downplayed Caitlin Clark's impact, is now staring at some numbers that would make any executive wince. Let's talk about these ratings because, holy cow, they're worse than anyone anticipated. We're looking at a 55% drop in viewership for nationally televised games without Clark. To put this into perspective, that's a straight-up nosedive. Games with Clark had an average of 1.8 million viewers. Without her, that number has dropped to 847,000, hardly making up half of the viewership. I know some will respond, oh, it's just because she's a popular player. However, let's face it, this is about more than simply popularity. It's about the WNBA's total failure to generate long-term interest in more than one player, and it's not Caitlin's fault.
I felt like mishandled so many things with the WNBA last season, and specifically with Caitlin Clark and her fan base. And that's one thing when you start thinking about how many people stopped watching when Caitlin Clark got injured. A lot of people stopped watching because they are boycotting the WNBA. They don't want to give viewership to any other teams or any other players, whether they like other players on the team or not, because of how the media and the league itself has handled Caitlin Clark and how they have treated her fans. Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans have been called
How is it going for you now? Remember when the league and media figures were always telling Clark's fans that they should support other players and enjoy real basketball? Remember when they were calling these new fans fake and claiming that they were only watching because Clark was white and not because she was exceptionally talented?
down. And this tweet from Christine Brennan really stuck out to me. She said one player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? Golf without Tiger definitely dropped precipitously on occasion, but not like this. A truly remarkable sports story continues. Now, we've gone over the Caitlin Clark effect, and I've also been one who has compared Caitlin to the likes of Tiger Woods just purely on her impact that she's had on the WNBA. But this news is alarming for the league, and it's alarming for the league because this is such a crucial year for the WNBA. At the end of this season, the WNBA will go into CBA negotiations. If negotiations go well, then every single player in the WNBA has a much better chance of making so much more in their next.
I think the irony is delightful. Instead of embracing the millions of new fans she brought in, the WNBA alienated them and spent so much time trying to minimize Clark's impact by acting as though the league was fine without her. Instead of using her popularity to elevate other players, they created this strange adversarial relationship where supporting Clark somehow meant you were against everyone else. Now look where we are. Clark gets hurt, and the WNBA is suddenly realizing what happens when you don't properly nurture your fan base. These numbers aren't just embarrassing. They're a warning that the league may be too obstinate to address.
We've got a bigger sample size of the ratings without Caitlin Clark. And they're pretty bad. Well, I don't want to say the ratings are bad, but they're just down a lot. A whole lot. So we're going to look at that and wow, I saw those numbers and was like, holy hell. Kathy Engelbert, WNBA commissioner. You got your ears on? I mean, what's the F around and find out? You're finding out. Rat cheer and rat now. Yeah.
Let's examine the true meaning of these ratings for the Indiana Fever. During her absence, Clark's team saw a 53% decline in viewership, but the worst part is that the league as a whole saw a 55% decline in nationally televised games. This indicates that Clark wasn't just boosting her team's popularity, rather, she was elevating the league's profile. Consider that for a split second, one player's injury caused half of the WNBA's television audience to vanish. Has any athlete in any sport ever had that kind of impact? Christine Brennan offered an intriguing analogy between Tiger Woods and golf, but even Tiger's absence didn't result in such a sharp decline right away. When you unknowingly put all of your eggs in one basket, this is what happens. Because they were too proud to acknowledge that perhaps this rookie second-year player was bringing something special to the table that they should have been celebrating rather than downplaying, the WNBA was too preoccupied with proving they didn't need Clark to ever bother figuring out how to keep her fans interested in the rest of the league.
Single name under the sun. They have been called out by players in the WNBA. The media has, you've seen it. We've talked about it here. You can't miss it on social media every single day. There's some media personality saying something bad about Caitlin Clark's fans, calling the fans names, saying that they are not there for basketball. They're just following Caitlin because she's white, or they're trying to push a certain agenda. Like, the narrative surrounding the biggest fan base to ever come to the WNBA have been actually insane. And then it goes as far as to the first game of the season, which was at Indiana against the Chicago Sky. Right after that game, they opened an investigation once again into the fans, where they found nothing, but the damage had already been done at that point. If some of these things happen just one time here and there, or there's one certain media personality who's just always saying these kind of things, then whatever. I feel like fans as a whole can be like, okay, whatever, this person is just a hater. But this is something that has happened over and over and over again, and over time it starts chipping away at how much you're going to actually care and want to support an organization if they continue to do.
Let's talk about the games played without Caitlin Clark. The Liberty vs. Sky matchup featuring Angel Reese drew around 600,000 viewers, not terrible by pre-Clark WNBA standards, but it's a noticeable drop from the numbers we saw when Clark was on the court. Production values for WNBA games on Amazon Prime and NBA TV have always been lacking, but fans tolerated it because Clark made the games worth watching. Without her, those flaws are glaring. And speaking of Angel Reese, let's address the elephant in the room. The media worked hard to frame a rivalry between Clark and Reese, pushing the narrative that they were equals in drawing power. But the ratings tell a different story. Reese is a solid player, no doubt, but she doesn't command attention like Clark does. That's not an insult. It's just a fact. Clark has been sidelined since May 24th with a quad strain after already dealing with an ankle injury. Coach Stephanie White has wisely prioritized her long-term health. From a business standpoint, though, the WNBA is surely sweating her absence. The league bet big on Clark's star power, and now they're learning the hard way what happens when all your promotional energy is tied to one player while simultaneously pretending that she's not the main attraction. This couldn't have come at a worse time. CBA negotiations are on the horizon, and the recent ratings slump will factor heavily into those talks. Player salaries, benefits, and working conditions are tied to league revenue, and when one injury drops your numbers by more than 50%, that affects everyone. Clark's injury happened just as the WNBA was catching fire, with record-breaking attendance and viewership. Sponsors were finally paying attention. Then she goes down, and everything stalls. Here's the real shame. This moment could have been avoided. Instead of using the past year to convert Clark fans into WNBA fans, the league and media spent their time lecturing them. We got think pieces about how problematic Clark's fans were, that they were only watching because of race, didn't understand the game, or were disrespecting other players. There were snide comments from athletes and analysts suggesting the league was better off before Clark arrived. Well, look around. This is what the WNBA looks like without her, back to 5 years ago, when no one was watching and salaries were barely livable. To make matters worse, Sophie Cunningham, another big draw, has also been out due to injury. With both her and Clark sidelined, the Fever are basically running on fumes. Even though Cunningham might be close to returning, the team is understandably playing it safe, which means the ratings will continue to slide. What's more concerning is the WNBA's response to all of this. No public acknowledgement of the ratings crash, no pivot in strategy, no plan to keep fans engaged during Clark's absence. Just business as usual. And that's a huge mistake. This is not business as usual, this is a crisis. Fans were willing to overlook bad camera work, poor commentary, and janky graphics when Clark was on the floor because the basketball was compelling. Without her, all those issues come into full view. The league has underinvested in its product for years, focusing on survival instead of spectacle. But in the modern sports world, production value matters. Fans used to NFL and NBA broadcasts won't stick around for a second-rate show, especially when the headliner is missing. Take the Dream vs. Fever game as an example. If Clark were playing, people might have tuned in despite the quality. Without her, most fans don't care. That's the reality. And given that Clark was averaging 19 points, over 9 assists, and 6 rebounds before her injury, including a triple-double, it's easy to see why she was drawing so much attention. She makes her teammates better and creates highlight moments that transcend the sport. That's what casual fans respond to, and very few players have that kind of magic. It's worth noting Clark had played 183 consecutive games between college and the WNBA before this injury. She's tough. So if she's out, you know it's serious. And while the Fever's 4-5 record without her is actually decent, none of that matters if no one is watching. The WNBA is an entertainment product first, and right now, without its main attraction, it's failing to entertain. What's going to be fascinating is how the league reacts once Clark is back. Will they continue downplaying her impact publicly while quietly depending on her behind the scenes? Probably. But that kind of split approach won't work forever. The upcoming game against the Liberty would have been the perfect showcase. Clark versus Sabrina Ionescu. Instead, it's likely to be another low-rated affair most people will skip. This entire saga is a case study in how not to handle your most valuable asset. The WNBA struck gold with Clark's rookie season, but instead of seizing the moment, they tried to convince everyone that the gold wasn't real. Now the shine is gone, and they're wondering why it's dark again. Here's the lesson. When you've got a transcendent star, you embrace her. You don't downplay her. You don't undermine her. And you definitely don't alienate the fans she brings with her. The WNBA didn't do that, and now they're paying the price. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert must be looking at these numbers and asking herself how things went sideways so fast. The harsh truth is this. When your business model becomes dependent on one player and you're too proud to admit it, you set yourself up for failure. One injury later, and all those record-breaking ratings vanish like they were never there. The league could have avoided this by investing in better broadcasts, marketing more players, and welcoming new fans instead of scolding them. But they didn't, and now they're learning the cost of taking their audience for granted. The WNBA is at a crossroads. They can keep pretending the Clark effect isn't real and hope things fix themselves when she returns. Or they can face reality, recalibrate their strategy, and build a sustainable future around the star who brought them to the dance. Based on how things have gone so far, it's unclear which path they'll choose. But one thing is for certain, the numbers don't lie. And they're a lot louder than any PR spin.